is the Collective Cast, a podcast about creativity and entrepreneurship. We're a creative marketing megatron type of a company that does video and photo, and we're just all out here, a collective of creative people making it happen. And we're going to tell you the stories of all the creative things that we've done along the way. This part might get cut. It might not, except that this is.
Right.
But we're here to tell a story, and today we've got our special guest and our in-house manager of all things video and drone, the one, the only, Ben Bailey.
What up, guys? How we doing?
Fantastic. It's so good to have you here.
Thank you.
Blake, what do you got?
What do you got for me, Blake?
Even if we do 100 episodes, I promise you, I will never be ready for
You'll
that.
never be ready.
Blake, what do you got?
What do you got?
I don't got much.
What do you got? I've got a lot, okay?
I've got...
I want to start with one thing first.
Okay, you go.
Let's start with it then.
Ben,
Yeah.
where did it all begin? Like your creative journey.
Yep.
The journey of you as a videographer. You do video, you do photo, you do drones,
Yeah.
you do FP, like all that stuff. You
Yep.
do it all. Where
I
did
do
it
it all.
all start and why?
I guess it all started close in high school, maybe right in the beginning of high school. I just started taking videos on my GoPro, just up at the cabin with my family and stuff like that, making little fun edits. Just really not good videos, but they were fun and I really enjoyed them. I got into creativity, like just making media, video and photo because of actually my stepdad, Robbie G.
Robbie G, love
Robbie
that
G,
guy.
love that guy.
You want to talk about one of the best photographers on the planet?
Yep.
It's Robbie G.
Wow.
He's one of the top photographers in the state right now, and he's going crazy. Yeah, he's going awesome.
The stuff he makes is just nuts to me.
Yep.
Like the stuff he makes is like you'd put that in a museum, like the print. If
Yeah.
you were to get a print of it, you'd want to save that in
He's
a
creative.
museum. It's nuts.
Yep. And so I kind of got that off of him, just seeing him go to school for it when I was younger, and then pursue it as a career in real estate photography. And so he actually helped me get one of my first jobs for video. I actually worked for Spacecrafting, a real estate video and photography company, and just started as an intern there. So I would work on Matterport, which is a 3D tour of the house, or I would do, eventually I graduated onto video and then worked under Steve. And that's where I learned all of my stuff, really. But going back to where it really, really began was those GoPro videos of up at the cabin or hanging out with friends, which turned into real estate, which then turned into everything for the media marketing company. But I just recently started getting into FPV drones. And
That's where it's at.
yeah, it is some of the funnest stuff ever.
What's the craziest thing you've what? What do you
it.
got?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Well, he's got something.
Before we get there,
Yep.
I would like to know, because I have my own experience, right, with being the kid in high school, loving like video, loving GoPros,
Yeah.
and I had a drone, and I caught flack for it all the time.
Yeah.
Like all my friends and non-friends were like making fun of me. And I wasn't like a weird person either. You know, it's just I was into something no one else was really into at the time.
Absolutely.
Were you getting that too?
I did, and I think this is one of the reasons why. I had a lot of friends that watched bigger YouTubers come like that are already developed in YouTube. And with my stuff, obviously it's low quality, not as good stuff, not as engaging, but they would compare it almost. They'd be like, oh, well, you're not at this level yet, or you're never going to be at this level. So they never wanted to watch it.
They almost expected you to be somewhere right out of the gate.
Right out of the gate.
Like be up here at excellence right out of the gate.
And even though I thought that I had awesome creativity in my head, maybe sometimes it doesn't translate, but it won't translate sometimes right away, especially if you don't have fundamentals where I eventually learned from you. And so I think that my path on how I kind of started through videography was a lucky one because I got to experiment by myself to see what worked and what didn't work. And it was mostly like my eyes seeing that. So I was like, okay, I either like that shot or I like this video I made or I hated it. And then going
It's crazy the opposition that you come up against, like the people, the naysayers and the haters and all that stuff is like, but when you look back at it, you're like, I'm kind of glad that happened because it really solidified in my mind that this is what I want to do.
100%.
Like even against the haters, even against all the odds, even against not having the best equipment or not maybe knowing everything, with all that coming at me,
Yep.
I still wanted to do this. Like that's what I think is just baller.
Yeah.
I remember like sitting in class and I'd just be like, please, no one look up my name on YouTube.
Yeah.
Like I'd have friends that would start talking about YouTube and then like they'd start looking each other up on Google. Like, oh, I'm gonna look up my friend on Google and see what comes up. And it was like a thing we'd do. And I would just like pray. I'm like, please don't look me up. You know? But then it's like now looking back, I'm like, I just look back at those old videos and I laugh and I love it because it's like that's how I got here. That's where I'm at.
Yeah.
And you know, a couple of years later, I was making more money than in one weekend than they were making all summer at their summer job. So, you know, screw you kind of a thing,
right?
you know, like, no, I'm kidding. But yeah. So you're getting through high school, right? And you said you transitioned to real estate.
Yeah.
And now it seems like you're really kind of taking on a lot of different avenues as far as video. You're, today, you know, I was with you guys in filming a skateboarder, right?
Yeah.
Doing some really cool stuff like that. What's your like, you know, your dream? Where do you want to take this?
My dream would be to have my own athlete. I would really love to work for Red Bull at the end of the day. But I would love to have an athlete or two even that I would travel with and be partners with almost and create their content. So either for their personal stuff, personal social medias, YouTubes, all that good stuff. But then also, since I am working for Red Bull, they would use that content for that athlete or whatever to use for promotional stuff. So if they're promoting that athlete, they would be using my content. So that involves video and photo, and I think that would be really cool. That's like the dream for me right now.
He's had that dream since he was still in high school.
Yep.
Wow.
Like that's always been what he's talking. The first day he worked with me, we were talking about that right out of the gate. Is like he'd just be baller to work for like Red Bull or whatever.
Yeah, and it almost has always been Red Bull too. Like it hasn't really ever been Monster, never Rockstar. I like athletes that are in both of those promotions or companies, but
you've always liked extreme sports.
I've always
liked
in
extreme
general
sports.
Yep, like I grew up skateboarding, BMXing, motorbiking, dirt biking, all that good stuff. I was never good at it, but we have a couple of friends that are pro motocross riders. I have a couple of friends that are pro skateboarders, snowboarders. And so I've always been in the mix of it. And I always thought it would be cool for them to have somebody to capture what they're doing. And I wanted to be that guy because I'm not comfortable in front of these cameras at all. Like, I hate it. But
You're fooling me. You're doing pretty good, dude.
Thank you.
It's crazy. Yeah. Like all the creatives that I ever talked to, it's like being on this side of the
my
glass is
God.
like so difficult. And yet we're having to coach people how to do it. Oh, it's just fine. Yeah, you're fine.
Yeah,
No,
right.
you got this.
Yeah.
You got this.
Yeah, you're such a great coach. Oh, thanks. Do it all the time. No.
What would be like what would be like the one extreme sport that you think you'd really get into, like filming or creating content for?
Well, right now I'm really into freestyle motocross. I've always been a fan of it. Like a Jeremy Stenberg, Twitch guy, Axel Hodges, Colby Raha, all those guys. They're just gnarly as all get out. And I've always been interested in motorcycles and dirt bikes and cars and all that cool stuff. And I love they do big jumps, big tricks, and all that good stuff. I think I'd love to do that mostly. I'd like skateboarding. I like BMXing, but I think it's just dirt bikes.
Yeah.
I love the motors. I love the sound. I love how fast they go. It's amazing. So I think I would probably pick a dirt bike rider.
Is that what kind of brought you into FPV? Was that kind of, you know, like I've seen a lot of those videos on Instagram and things, like definitely FPV heavy right now, right? Because you can't track something going 50 miles an hour down a track or whatever without something like that.
Precisely,
Right? Is that what got you into it, or what got you into it?
What got me into FPV was actually my love for, I shouldn't say love, but my interest in flying. Like ever since I was a little kid, I've been very jealous of birds because they get to fly wherever they want to. Like I wanted to be Superman. And when you're in an FPV headset, you're flying in the air. Like it's the closest thing that I've gotten to just flying. And it's really opened up my eye for video because we're getting these different angles with someone in the air or someone in a tunnel or just stupid, crazy stuff that usually you wouldn't be able to get from the ground or you wouldn't be able to get from a regular camera rig. So it just opens up this whole new door of creativity that people don't get to see. We're all on the ground. And like you're in the air in an airplane, hot air balloon, but it's different. And so it's just next level. It's totally next level. And it's taking over everything. FPV is taking over everything right now for video.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah, I love it.
Bro, the one time I was around you and you were filming, I don't know, I'm not even the one filming, but I just could feel the adrenaline just watching you.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know if it's anxiety or whatever too, but it's like, dang, dude.
It's a lot of
like just seeing that thing and knowing like if you let go of the sticks, you know, because it's not like it's like fully manual, right?
Fully manual.
That thing's just fallen, and also I think I have some bad memories of when I was
From drone crashes.
flying a drone, and I was testing out the return to home feature, and it was early Phantom 3. So this is before they had all the sensors everywhere, and it was like super like good, and GPS was on, it was like decent. And I'm in Tennessee, and there's like canopy of trees above me, but it's like, pretty high up. I don't know. I didn't even look at it. I just like, let's just test this feature out. My dad's like, yeah, you should probably test that out just to see how it works. And so, yeah, right. And so I pushed the button, and the thing just rockets up straight up in the air because it only has sensors underneath.
On the bottom, right.
So it shoots up so it can see below it. And it just straight up into tree branches. That thing just comes tumbling down. Now it's just like, yeah, well, I don't need to be a drone pilot anymore. I was like, I was going to start this whole business. Yeah.
I'm good. I had a similar thing happen to me. We were flying. This was one of the Inspire ones.
Yeah,
right?
that white one, yep.
Yeah, we were out. Another guy and me were out. We were filming this property, and it backed up to a river. I think it was the St. Croix, actually. I can't remember. But it backed up to the river, and we were flying out over the river. And so we had walked down into the trees, and all of a sudden I get the battery warning, and I don't like to mess with battery warnings. So I take it down, and I thread this needle of trees, just like bring the drone right in through it. And I start coming down. The landing gear folds down all nice and pretty, and then all of a sudden the battery hits critical.
Oh my God.
And it decides, you know what? It had that auto return to home thing, right? And it just, boom, hit a branch, dropped down, busted the gimbal. It was like, oh my God.
That's the worst.
It's like, I can fly this better than you can because I could see what I'm doing, but the AI just takes over and thinks it's going to do whatever.
Man.
Needless to say, after that, we shut that feature off.
Yeah,
like
I don't
instantly.
use that. Hate it. It's good for what I've been learning through FPV is that there's different ranges. So you can do freestyle, long range, and like micro. And these long range drones also come with a GPS on the back of it. And they've just been testing out this new GPS system, and it's gotten to the point where it can get centimeters away from the takeoff spot. Yeah,
dang.
It's getting real legit.
Even those new DJI ones, you can get them. Oh, it was Free Fly.
Oh, the Free Fly,
the Free Fly ones, like they have this new thing, this new GPS on it that just literally will lock it in a space where old ones, they'll drift a little bit here and there and do all this kind of stuff, but this one's just like within a centimeter, just locked like that.
It's next
crazy that we're able to get to the point where you can literally lock a drone in the air and just let it sit there.
Yep.
That's just nuts to me.
I love it.
What was the first drone you ever flew?
The first drone I ever flew was the first Mavic. The number one 1080p.
Oh, yeah.
That was the first one in a big open field. The second drone I flew off of that was camera operating for the Inspire 2 with you.
Oh, yeah.
And then there was, I think after that was also flying the Inspire 2 with you. So I definitely learned on, the nicer, smaller, cheaper drone, and then moved up to the $20,000 one with you.
Yours was the original Phantom?
Yeah.
Or one of the originals?
Yeah. I mean, if this counts, I play with like this toy drone, right?
Oh,
it was like
for sure.
It was like a DJI like knockoff.
Yeah.
And but it had no features. It was terrible. But then I went straight to the Phantom 3 4K or whatever.
Oh yeah.
I was an idiot and started on a $15,000 drone.
Was that the octocopter?
Yeah, it was the
Oh my goodness.
the Free Fly Cinestar 8. And this drone is just a giant circle with 8 props on it.
8 arms.
And normally with like a Phantom, the lights on those are pretty bright. You know which way is kind of forward. But even at those, it was weird.
Yeah.
To where now the Mavics and the Inspires, like, you know which way it's facing. You know when it's going forward or backwards. But this thing was just a giant circle up there. And it had these dim LED strips. So once you get it up in the air, you can't tell which ones are green for forward and red for backward.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I get this thing up in the air first time, and I'm in this circle cul-de-sac of townhomes. I get this thing up in the air, and I don't know which way is forward. And so I tap the sticks, and it just goes. It's so powerful because I didn't have a gimbal under it,
Sure.
so it was literally just holding its own weight.
Yeah.
So I had double the power that I normally would if I was carrying a gimbal. So I just tap them, and this thing just starts flying right towards one of the townhouses, and I pull back on the stick, and I'm literally just doing everything I can as this thing's just banking around this cul-de-sac of whatever, and I'm just like hoping I don't hit a house. I gas it up above them so I can get control of it, and finally get control of it and bring it down to land.
Yeah.
Very rough landing also.
Yes.
But it's like afterwards, like I set the controller down and I'm literally just shaking because it's like, one, it's a $15,000 drone.
Yep.
2, they're so new that no insurance company covered drones at the time. So if I would
Wow.
have smashed into a house and wrecked somebody's
you.
window, and it's all on
All
me, I
you.
have to pay for everything. And I'm like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
lost the drone, just blew out somebody's windows, and
Yep.
I have to replace the whole thing. And I'm like, oh my. So I was just, after that, I was just like, I'm good for a minute.
I had almost that same experience last fall. It was my first FPV drone. Didn't have any waterproofing, nothing. And that day, I accidentally forgot my antenna on the back of my FPV drone. And so I was showing off to some friends, like, oh, this is my new drone. Like, this is the sickest thing ever. I built it. And so I take it out in the rain pretty much. It's not hard, but it's drizzling. And I take off, got my goggles on, and I go down the street. And almost automatically, I have nothing for video. And so I rip off my goggles and just send it into the air, like as hard as I could. Because I was also around a ton of houses.
Wow.
It was so bad. Eventually, I got it in the air and was trying to orientate it, but I couldn't because it was so high up there. Eventually, I lost remote control RX signal, and it just fell. And I was lucky enough for it to fall in a pond. But there was like 30 to 40 houses around us.
That's crazy.
It was the worst. And I was thinking the same thing. I was like, I went through someone's window. I went through someone's car. Nothing. Just couldn't find the drone.
Isn't that the most horrendous feeling to get the signal lost? Like that, like when you lose visual signal from it and you just don't know where you're flying. Like you could see it, but when it's that far out, you can still see that it's there, but you don't know which way it's facing.
You have no
It's
clue.
like, so to lose that ability to see where I'm pointing is the most scary. But then too, when you lose RX, you're like, no.
Yeah,
It's
no.
crazy too, because every drone pilot I've been with, when that happens, it's like this knee-jerk reaction. Just everybody just goes like they just go nuts and they're like looking around like all crazy. And like every single pilot I've ever been with is always just like instant into this panic mode.
It is the scariest feeling. Just there's a bowling ball in your stomach and you think life's over.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
Take out a little children or a chihuahua.
Right? It's just the freakiest thing ever.
Yeah.
What's the building process like for like a FPV drone?
Sure. Usually you start off with the frame that you want. And so it also varies. Sometimes you have true X frames. Sometimes you have compressed X frames. You have dead cat frames, which means the 2 front arms are shorter in and then the back arms are longer and they come out a little bit. And that helps with long distance flying and getting the most battery life that you could. So you usually start with that. Then you have to look for a flight controller and an ESC, which usually come in a bundle, so a stack, 2 boards together, which the flight controller is everything that all the brains in your drone pretty much, and then ESC just runs all of your motors. From there, you need to grab a camera, a camera system. So you DJI or Walk Snail, a few other companies make them. But almost everyone's coming out with HD, 1080p, or 4K FPV cameras, which is next level. FPV hasn't been around forever.
It used to be all analog.
Used to be all analog cameras, which that means analog camera, if you can think of like an old security camera with those lines coming through when you don't have good signal, that's what you had for an FPV camera.
Wow.
Like
Which
that's
is
all
insane.
you were seeing. Like the camera you mounted to it that was recording could be
a GoPro,
Right.
Whatever HD camera that you want up there, honestly, which is super nice to
Yeah.
have. After you get the camera, you need some antennas. You need a receiver for your controller. I use TBS Crossfire, and that just has a longer range on it, so it doesn't fail safe as much. After that, man, you're pretty set. Grab some motors, and you can also buy them in bundles. So companies, they'll build the drones for you and just send it ready to run too. So it's all preference, honestly.
But then you just solder it together,
Yep.
put all the wires.
Yeah, soldering.
yeah.
Sometimes there's pin connectors for you, which makes it really nice. I started with building a drone, and for people getting into FPV, I would not suggest that at
should
all.
do an RTF first.
Yeah, 100%. It's way easier. People that want to fly FPV want to get in the air usually right away. There's a select few that will go through the process of building, and I mean it's helpful. You build a drone and it breaks, you know exactly how to fix it and what you need.
Speaking of that, if you guys are interested in watching him build a drone, he's going to be putting out a video very soon on the
Next
Collective
week.
Media House
Yow.
channel, y'all,
Yep, that'll be fun.
where he's going to go through building an entire FPV drone.
Yep.
It's going to be great.
It's going to be great. I'm going to rebuild a sub 250 gram drone, and then I am going to take my 5-inch drone that we used yesterday and just do a tune-up. Make sure my soldering points are good, make sure there's no loose wires and all that good stuff for when we're on set.
The biggest thing with all of these things too is like, yeah, we have all these stories, these horror stories and different things like that. But the biggest thing that I know that the two of us definitely do in every time we fly is safety is always our number one concern whenever we're flying these drones. We're making sure that we have the routes figured out. We're making sure we have spotters. We're making sure that, you know, all of our gear is sound. We're checking props. We're checking all the arms.
Yeah.
It's not like these things are happening because we're not, you know, on top of our game. It's just they're going to happen no matter what.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's working really hard to mitigate these things and making sure that you're considering the safety of not only the people around you and others and different things like that, but like the safety of like even property. It's like you
Absolutely.
need to take this type of stuff seriously, and that's what we make sure and do before every single flight, because it's not a joke flying a drone.
Absolutely
It's not. It's not when you're doing it for a profession. It's not a game up there. Like these props can really hurt people, and having a drone fall out of the sky can really hurt somebody. So it's really important to, whenever you're flying anything, you know, really consider what it is that you're doing, why you're doing it, and the mission of that specific flight, so that you're taking into consideration everything that could go wrong and trying to minimize the risk for anybody involved.
Absolutely. I mean, you have these, speaking of FPV, you have a 900 gram drone, fully carbon. You have a GoPro on top and a big battery that's going 50 miles an hour. And you have sharp blades that are going like 30,000 RPM.
Mm-hmm.
And they're sharp.
I've been sliced on my hand.
Absolutely. I was there for that. That was a bloody mess.
It was a giant bloody mess. We were flying a drone inside
Yep.
a property that had this wide open like 2-level area where there's a balcony thing up top, and we had started flying, and this was back when the obstacle avoidance thing was relatively new.
Yeah.
And there was just so much around this drone that the internal computer was just freaking out, not knowing what to do. And it was backing into this really expensive painting. And I was like, we're not doing that. So I literally reached in and grabbed the drone. It just started slicing up my pinky, and there's just blood everywhere. It was horrible. I just grabbed it and tipped it upside down, because that was one of the fail safes, is just to tip it upside down. It would shut everything down. down, but I did not want it running into anything in there. It was just like, we're done.
Yep, absolutely.
But my hand was just blood. It was crazy.
You have to make some of those sacrifices
Yeah.
sometime to be
It's like,
on a set.
I can repair my hand, but I can't. I don't know that I want to be paying for that pain.
So for someone that wants to get into drones, let's say like break into FPV and then just like regular cinematography drones or whatever, consumer level, what would you recommend for just someone trying to get started, trying to get their first drone, their first FPV?
Yeah.
What would that look like?
I think for the first person buying a drone and that wants to fly a drone, I think the best or coolest option right now on the market is the DJI Mini 3, I think it's called. It's just a light drone. So if something horrible goes wrong and a bird goes after it and it falls out of the sky, it's a fairly light piece of plastic that it won't really do anything. Even if it falls on someone, it'll hurt, but it won't do anything. And I think that would be really beneficial for a new flyer or new pilot, excuse me. For FPV, it gets difficult. DJI has a really awesome FPV drone that they came out with. Out of the box, you can fly at full acro mode, which means you can do barrel rolls, flips, everything fully manual. But then it also has like a beginner mode where it flies just like a Mavic. So you could use that if you wanted to do regular drone stuff. And then also it has like a medium in between that. So it'll partially do a roll, but it won't go all the way upside down. I think that's a really, really good option for FPV because everything else is quite custom. Even when you're buying it already built and all that stuff, like people put that together. And so once that breaks, you'll have to replace it. And so that either means you have to learn how to replace it or you have to go pay for someone to fix it for you. And so it just gets more costly. And I don't think that's what beginners want to, or that's why they're getting into it. So, yeah.
Yeah, you'd probably want to stay away from, if you're just starting, you want to probably stay away from FPV to begin.
I would agree.
And go with a regular, just like a cinema drone type of a thing, like you were saying, that Mavic, Mini 3 Pro or whatever.
Yeah.
Like something small like that is probably the best place to start. And then as you get a feel for that and how a drone flows through the air and all the different things you have to do to, maintain a smooth shot, then you can almost advance into an FPV, because FPV, when you start flying full manual, is a lot of work.
It's scary.
Once you get it, it's a little easier, but it's always like flying any drone is always scary. Yep. Like every time I fire up a drone, it's like I have this respect for what it is that I'm doing.
Yep. And there are things that, like, there are simulations that you can buy for your computer that you can kind of just connect your remote controller into and practice that way for FPV. But I think you're right. I think if you just start on the old regular drone, forward, backwards, and you get pan as well, it'll just set up your mechanics and your rhythm better for flying to get comfortable under the sticks. I think that's the way to go.
Again, if any of you are thinking about getting into drones, we are going to have a ton of drone-specific videos on our Collective Media House channel. It was awesome to have Ben on the show
Thank
today.
You for having me.
Awesome to learn about different types of drones. Always good to have you. He's just always here.
Oh, man.
I can't do it without him. He got us going on this bad boy. Again, thank you guys so much for watching. Really appreciate it. Go ahead and like, subscribe, share this with all your friends. Anybody that's thinking about it, getting into drones, let them know. There's a ton of good information here and on our channel. So thank you guys so much, and we'll see you again next time. Peace and love.